In the year 2000, Netflix walked into Blockbuster's corporate headquarters with a $50 million offer. They wanted to be acquired. Blockbuster's CEO laughed them out of the room. 14 years later, Blockbuster was bankrupt. Netflix was worth $150 billion. This is the story of the most expensive laugh in business history, and what every founder alive today needs to learn from it. To understand how badly Blockbuster failed, you first have to understand how powerful they were. At the peak, Blockbuster was not just a video rental store. It was an empire. By the year 2004, they operated over 9,000 locations across the United States alone. They employed 84,000 people. Their annual revenue exceeded $5 billion. Every Friday night in America, and this is important to visualize, 60 million people were walking into a Blockbuster store. 60 million. They controlled the home entertainment industry so completely that they could and did charge late fees that generated over $800 million per year. $800 million. Just from people forgetting to return movies. Blockbuster was the definition of an untouchable business. They had scale, brand recognition, supplier relationships, and real estate in nearly every suburban neighborhood in America. When Reed Hastings founded Netflix in 1997, Blockbuster's executives barely noticed. Why would they? Netflix was a tiny DVD-by-mail startup operating out of a warehouse in Scotts Valley, California, with a few dozen employees and no stores. To Blockbuster, Netflix was not a threat. Netflix was a curiosity. Here is where the story gets interesting. Reed Hastings did not start Netflix because he had a grand vision for streaming. He started it because he was angry. In 1997, Hastings rented a copy of Apollo 13 from a Blockbuster store. He forgot to return it. By the time he went back, he owed $40 in late fees. He was embarrassed, and more importantly, he was frustrated. That frustration became a billion-dollar insight. The question he asked himself was simple. Why does renting a movie have to work like this? Why do I have to drive to a store, choose from a limited selection, and then remember to return it or get penalized? Why can we not rent movies the same way we subscribe to a gym? A flat monthly fee, no late fees, no due dates, keep the movie as long as you like. Netflix launched in 1998 with exactly that model. DVD by mail, no late fees, unlimited monthly subscription. The selection was not limited by shelf space. It was limited only by what existed on DVD. At first, growth was slow. Netflix had around 300,000 subscribers by 2002. But something critical was happening that Blockbuster missed entirely. Netflix was not just building a DVD business. They were building data. Every movie a customer chose, every rating they gave, every rental pattern across millions of subscribers, Netflix was capturing all of it. They were building the most sophisticated recommendation engine the entertainment industry had ever seen. And that data, those algorithms, that customer relationship, those were going to matter enormously when the next shift came. Now we arrive at the meeting. The year was 2000. The dot-com bubble had just burst, and Netflix was bleeding money. Reed Hastings and his co-founder Mark Randolph flew to Dallas to meet with Blockbuster CEO John Antioco. Their pitch was straightforward. Let us be the Blockbuster.com brand. You handle the stores, we handle online. $50 million. Antioco reportedly laughed. He politely declined. Now it's tempting to look back and call Antioco an idiot, but that would miss the lesson entirely. He was not stupid. By every rational metric available in the year 2000, this was a reasonable decision. Netflix was losing money. Streaming did not exist at scale. Broadband internet was in fewer than 5% of American homes. The DVD by mail model seemed like a niche, and $50 million was a significant acquisition price for a money-losing startup. But here is what Antioco got catastrophically wrong. He evaluated Netflix by what it was, not by what it was becoming. He looked at the present reality and ignored the trajectory. He saw a struggling startup, not a platform positioned to absorb the next wave of technological change. Every founder should understand this failure mode, because it does not happen only to giants. It happens to successful startups, to category leaders, to people who have earned the right to feel secure. The name for it is the innovator's dilemma. When a new technology is bad enough to ignore today, but improves fast enough to eventually dominate. After the meeting, Netflix went back to work, and work they did. In 2002, Netflix went public on the NASDAQ. By 2003, they had passed 1 million subscribers. Meanwhile, Blockbuster finally woke up. In 2004, they launched Blockbuster Online, their own DVD by mail service. And it was actually good. For a brief moment, they were competing effectively. But here is where the internal politics of a large corporation proved fatal. Blockbuster Online was eating into late fee revenue. That $800 million cash cow was being threatened, not just by Netflix, but by their own online division. The franchise owners who ran individual Blockbuster stores revolted. They pressured corporate to protect the in-store model. In 2007, Blockbuster removed the no late fees policy from their online offering and cut the budget for their streaming experiments. They essentially stabbed their own future in the back. Meanwhile, Netflix made its most consequential decision. In 2007, Reed Hastings began testing streaming. At the time, the content library was limited to about 1,000 titles. But Hastings understood something that his competitors did not. He understood that the DVD business was just the bridge to get there. The whole point of building a subscriber base, collecting data, creating a recommendation engine, it was all preparation for the moment when the internet was fast enough to deliver video on demand. By 2010, Netflix had 12 million subscribers. They were spending billions on licensing streaming rights. The future was no longer a curiosity. It was arriving fast. In September 2010, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. It was not sudden. It was the accumulation of a decade of deferred decisions, internal sabotage, and strategic arrogance. By 2013, the last remaining corporate Blockbuster stores had closed. The only survivor is a single store in Bend, Oregon, which today operates as a tourist attraction and a museum of corporate hubris. The last Blockbuster on Earth. Think about that. There is now one Blockbuster. It has a gift shop. Meanwhile, Netflix in 2023 reported over 240 million subscribers worldwide and revenue of $33 billion. But here is the part of this story that almost nobody tells. Blockbuster was not alone in failing. Every major incumbent in the entertainment industry failed to anticipate the shift. Walmart tried and abandoned a streaming service. Best Buy tried and retreated. Even Apple, which launched its own video service later, took years to gain traction. What made Netflix different was not that they were smarter. It was that they were willing to destroy themselves before their competitors could destroy them. Reed Hastings famously told his own team, "We are trying to make our DVD business irrelevant before anyone else does." That sentence contains more strategic wisdom than most business school courses. The companies that survive disruption are rarely the ones with the most resources. They are the ones willing to make the uncomfortable bet, to sacrifice the profitable present in service of the possible future. So what does this mean for you? Whether you are building a startup, running a growing company, or working inside a large organization, the Blockbuster and Netflix story teaches 3 things that no business school teaches clearly enough. First, your current revenue is not a strategy. Blockbuster's late fees funded the very complacency that killed them. If your biggest revenue line is also the thing that makes you resistant to change, that is not a strength. That is a liability dressed up as an asset. Second, evaluate the trajectory, not the present. When you dismiss a competitor because they are small or losing money right now, you are making Antiocho's mistake. Ask instead, if the assumptions underlying their model become true in 5 years, how big could they be? Third, and this is the hardest one, sometimes you have to bet against yourself. The most durable companies in the world, from Amazon to Apple to Netflix, have a history of deliberately undermining their most profitable products before competitors could do it for them. Jeff Bezos launched Kindle knowing it would hurt book sales. Steve Jobs launched the iPhone knowing it would eat the iPod. Reed Hastings launched streaming knowing it would cannibalize DVDs. The pattern is not an accident. It is a strategy. And it requires something rarer than capital or talent. It requires the courage to be right about where things are going, even when everyone around you is counting the money from where things are today. If this story gave you something to think about, subscribe to Founder Fuel. Every week we break down the decisions, mistakes, and breakthroughs that shape the companies defining our world. Hit subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.